Imagine that there was a delicious snack being sold in the shops, marketed to children, and it was very popular, cheap, didn't fill you up, but the kids loved it, and they ate tons of the stuff. Now, imagine further that a few years later, it turned out that this delicious snack had been having an unexpected effect on the children. The effect was that it made them violent. After, let's say, 15 years of research from a number of top universities around the world, it was found that wherever this food is introduced, approximately 15 years later, there was an increase in the murder rates of violent assault, violent crime in general, and the researchers had no doubt that this food was having a devastating effect on society. Let's also say, in this imaginary game we're playing here, that scientists discovered that one of the ingredients of the food seemed to be the one that was responsible for this behavior. However, this ingredient was not removed from the food's recipe. In fact, the company that made this snack put more of the ingredient in, more and more every year. Now, can you imagine further if the government, the scientists, the Surgeon General put out warnings that people should not feed this snack to their children? But can you imagine somehow that the government didn't ban it? Can you imagine parents buying this for their children still? Well, if you can't imagine that, perhaps you'd like to imagine this. In literally hundreds of studies from top scientific institutions around the world, carried out over decades, it's been found as an incontrovertible fact that when television is introduced into a new market, emerging countries, approximately 15 years later, there's a large increase in the murder rates. Apparently it doubles. Yeah, it doubles the murder rates after 15 years. Apparently, the effect only seems to really cause difficulties with children. That is, a 30-year-old who spends the next 15 years watching television, it's not going to have such a big effect on him, but the 5 and 10-year-olds that spend 15 years watching television, when they get to their mid-20s, it turns out that for some reason they end up being, or having a slightly higher chance of being violent, such that the murder rates double, and this happened time and time again in different territories and different countries. But and of course the Surgeon General in America, he a while ago came out saying that television, violent television especially for children, was damaging, and parents should stop their children from watching it. The surprising thing is that violence on television isn't banned, seeing how frankly dangerous it is. It just goes on, and it's surprising and disturbing. When it comes to the school shooting that we had recently, people ask questions like, where was God in the school shooting? And people say, and I've heard people say that some theologians say things like, well, God was testing us. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's be completely frank. If you stick your hand into a fire and your hand gets burnt, are you going to turn around and say, oh, why did my hand get burnt? Oh, I know, God was testing me. I don't think you'd be stupid enough to say that, would you? So, if we create a society where children are exposed to something where the evidence over hundreds of tests, hundreds of studies of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people over decades in various different countries have proven as a fact that television usage, television viewing in children causes them to become more violent adults, and yet we still let them watch it, is that God testing us when people act out their violent fantasies? Or are we testing him?